name is Chris Kimball with Legacy Tours and Travel, and we're excited to give you an overview tonight about an amazing tour, one of our brand new tours that we have put together to Egypt. I'm sorry, not to Egypt, to Greece. And we're going to Greece, and we're going to be exploring the Apostle Paul and his teachings and what he went through while he was in Greece. And so we're excited about that. We hope you're excited to get back into the travel flow and go out and explore this world that's out there just waiting for us to get back into. And for those of you that might be joining us on Facebook right now, you can actually get a link sent to you so that you can watch the overview of the Zoom conference by just sending an email to info@legacytoursandtravel.com. That's info@legacytoursandtravel.com. And then you'll receive an email link shortly, and then you'll be able to hop on and watch the overview from our Zoom conference call. So I'm excited to introduce tonight our guide that will be taking us to Greece in the fall, and his name is McKay Daines. He is a DGA award-winning director, writer, and producer. His resume and experience in filmmaking span over 2 decades and include feature films, documentaries, advertising campaigns, and television shows. He is currently in pre-production on Faith, Hope, and Charity, a World War II big budget feature film set in Malta that he wrote the script for and is producing and directing. It is based on true events at the start of the war. Shooting is scheduled to begin. We'll just fill in the blank. We're not sure when that happens, but it'll be in Malta and in England. Among his most notable past accomplishments include the sci-fi original movie Age of the Dragons in 2011, the feature films Heber Holiday in 2007, The Dance in 2006, and the award-winning documentary The Abolitionists in 2016. McKay attended the American University in Washington, D.C. for filmmaking and has given lectures and seminars across the United States. McKay is on the advisory board and the faculty of Mount Liberty College, and he has been he's been a gospel instructor for more than 20 years in both Utah and Virginia. He is married with 3 children. And so without any other further ado, I'm going to turn it over to McKay. Thank you.
Thanks, Chris. It's nice to have this recorded so people can come in and watch it at any time. And it's going to be really...
All right, we are going to get started tonight. Thank you for joining us.
Oh, somebody's doing some cool background. Okay, anyway, this is going to be, I think, one of the highlights for a lot of people, including myself, in travel in their lifetime. And partly is not just because I'm going to be your tour guide, but because of the places we're going to go and the history and how unique they are and how much they've changed and in some ways influenced all of the world and where the direction of the world is still going today. So if you look at all the tours that you could go on, why on earth would you pick a tour to follow where the ancient apostle Paul went? That's got to be a question. You have as much money to spend on travel. Why do I go and follow this tour to where Paul went? So my job is to tell you why I think it would be one of the greatest tour adventures of your life. And I think it comes down to a few major points. First, you're going to be walking in almost the exact footsteps that Paul walked in. Now, first of all, you have to have an understanding of Paul and an appreciation of Paul. Now, after Jesus Christ, Paul took upon himself to become the greatest missionary that the Christian church has probably ever seen. And in terms of his ripple effect, it's beyond comprehension what Paul did from his early life and the transformation of him from Saul of Tarsus to Paul of Tarsus. So if you want to just read up on a unique character, that's the first hook that gets in you, fish hook that gets in you, is I want to know more about this person who absolutely changed the world, any way we look at it. And we're walking in those great places of the ancient world. It's the birth of Christianity. If you're a Christian, you want to go back and see where everything began, other than Jerusalem area, where the church began to spread, and even the term Christians became a term. Before, remember, they're all just little sects of Jews, of the Jewish people that were being taught at first of the Jewish religion, including Saul. And you're going to find that the transformation of Saul is that he was trying to protect the Jewish religion from these sects that would come in and take them away. And this Nazarene, following the Nazarene Jesus Christ, was one of those. And so you're going to read up on the most diverse places that Saul went to. And then when he became Paul as a missionary, he went to convert the world and turn them to Christianity. We're going to be going to also some of the most beautiful places in the world. I mean, from all of Athens. I've always wanted to explore Athens and the Parthenon and Pink's Hill. And we're going to go to Thermopylae, where the 300 Spartans held out. And we're going to go to the beautiful monasteries in the Byzantine monasteries of Meteora and the gorgeous sites on the Aegean Sea. And then all of these great little islands we're going to visit, Mykonos and Patmos, where John was, and Crete and Rhodes and Santorini. And we're going to have a terrific slideshow in a minute showing you these places. But that is all encompassed in following the footsteps of Paul. And you're going to be the exact places that Paul taught. So right in your own scriptures, you're going to hear where he became a great missionary, the foundation of the Christianity that he began to forward. You're going to see where he taught at Thessalonica, at the Philippians, at Ephesus, down into Athens, which is my favorite place where that he taught. And in each of these places, not only are you going to have these gorgeous places to visit that have an historical background, you're also going to have a spiritual background. What was he teaching and why in certain places? So not only will we study, at least with me, what you'll get from me is you'll get a history behind it, not just a religious history, but a history of these places, because they all had ancient historical places long before Paul became there. Paul was, you have to understand, was a very educated person. He came from an educated family, Jewish family, from a very cosmopolitan city, Tarsus. And in that city, he was able to meet many different religions, many different philosophies, and there were many different philosophies. One of my favorite works of Paul, chapters, is in the book of Acts, chapter 17, when he starts to talk to the Athenians. And what's so fascinating about this is that the Athenians are made up of great philosophies. And he knows this. And he even says to this, going to them, that I know you are. So if you look in Acts chapter 17, in verse 18, he says, then certain philosophers of the Epicureans and the Stoics encountered him. And some said, what will this babbler say? So they're wondering, what is this guy babbling about on a Nazarene, and that Jesus Christ is really the Messiah? And so you have entire philosophies that have grown up that are part of where we're going. In fact, if you want, I'm going to give a list of books that we could put on the site. But if you want to start reading Epicureans, here's the essential Epicurean. So if you want to read of the discourses of Epictetus, which is another great philosophy that was all in these areas, the meditations of Marcus Aurelius. And so you have Stoics and what they followed. All of these philosophies were there. And the great thing, Paul was prepared from the beginning. That's what will follow. He could talk their language. He even quotes in the discourse I just showed you in 17 from a line that the Stoics would know, a poetry line. And we will be standing at that exact place. We will be talking about that exact line that he gives, so that all of a sudden they realize he is a learned man who understands their philosophy. He is Jewish. He is a Pharisee. He is high Jewish. He's a Roman citizen. So this is someone they can't just immediately, even they call him a babbler because they don't understand what he's talking about, a Messiah, a Jesus, a Redeemer. They have to understand that terminology. We're going to be standing at those exact places. What's fascinating about Paul is he gives sermons and epistles for all these places that we're going that were directly for those people. For instance, when we go to Thessalonica, if you look at Thessalonica and what he addresses to them in letters, you'll see what they had to learn. In the book of Acts, you'll find exactly what he had to say to the Corinthians. And then when we go to Corinth, which, remember, Corinth is this great city we're going to explore that's like the Las Vegas of that world. It was a city of sin. So you can see that Paul, we'll stand there and see where Paul tailors his message to them specifically, really, really hitting on fornication. You've got to stop this. And then he's trying to keep these little fledgling churches together. So you see the epistle to the Ephesians in Ephesus, because he's already brought these little churches to life, and he has to tell them to stick together, quit fighting amongst each other, quit having contention. All of these are somewhat relevant to how we are as a church today and how we should respond. So we're going to be standing in ancient places talking about ancient words that Paul either wrote or gave as a sermon that was recorded by most likely Luke. But we know he was in prison for a number of years, so we know he wrote several epistles in prison. But we're going to the places in this tour where he's either writing to them or he's been to them. And some of those places, I said, are you just never going to, it's a once in a lifetime type of visit. I mean, for me to go to Thermopylae, where the 300 held, is, even though it doesn't have a lot to do with Paul, is just, you guys are we're going to have the greatest lecture there of all time before we tour. And they're still discovering, I have a friend who's an archaeologist there, they're still discovering spearheads there. So we're going to walk right near where they were and fought and held off. And people will understand the importance of that battle, how they held off Persia. And by holding off Persia, there's a reason why the Greek philosophy and the foundation of Greece in Rome and eventually in the United States is so important. And it could have all changed. It could have all been Persian based. And that's in that moment. And that's why that's such an important place that we're going to go and see and visit. And then last we have, as I said, Athens. We're going to spend quite a bit of time in Athens. And Athens is this fascinating, it's fascinated so many people for many years in terms of all the different sides of Athens. And we have so many places that we're going to go that, as I said, from the Parthenon to the Pink's Hill, we're going to stand right where democracy was created. Now, why is this important? These places are very special places in the world. That's why Paul went there. That's why Paul encountered the Epicureans and the Stoics. That's why he knew it was so important to talk in their language. But he also knew that Socrates, Plato, Aristotle, all of these people had come from there. If you want to bone up on Greece and going to Greece, there's a couple of really good documentaries you ought to watch. There's a great historian recently named Betany Hughes, and she has her Greek Odyssey, which is playing all the time on PBS now. And she visits the islands that are really great. There's a really fun documentary called A Trip to Greece with two British comedians, and they follow the Odyssey. They follow Odysseus, and that's fun. You'll see some of the islands we're going to. If you want to read, grab it real quick. I got a bad arm, sorry. This is a great book, one of my favorite books on Greece. I'll have it up. It's called The Hemlock Cup by Betany Hughes. And this will teach you more. You can see I flagged a few passages. This will teach you more about Athens and the growth of philosophy and how it was so important to understand what came from Athens and how we still follow. My father, I think, considered himself more of a Stoic than anything, but we still follow many of the teachings of Aristotle and Plato in so many different facets of our lives. But these are also romantic places. They're beautiful places. We'll study the architecture of these places, but we'll also understand the gospel understanding of why we're even there. What part did it have to play? Can you imagine going to Crete and Mycenae? The things that we're going to see that are ancient, that are woven into our modern society. All of that's on this tour. In fact, in some ways, it's almost, to be honest with you, overpowering. I think there's times where we're going to have to take a breath because we have a mixture of such history. And then the writings of Paul are very deep. Any of you who've ever heard me teach on Paul know that I can spend 45 minutes on just a few verses because he's digging deep. He's creating a real foundation of Christianity that's still alive for us today. And his incredible transformation is something we'll spend a little bit of time on because I really believe when Paul had his, and many people call it an epiphany, it's basically a visit from Jesus Christ, had his visit from Jesus on the road to Damascus, is this very, very important point. There's a couple books that are worth reading. There's a famous author that we study awful in gospel that wrote a great book that many of you know called The Life of Christ by Frederick Farrar. Well, recently when I was teaching about Paul, I realized he wrote another book, The Life and Work of St. Paul. And this is a brilliant book. I mean, I flagged signs in here that are just really interesting. For instance, this, when Jesus appears to Paul on the road to Damascus, he calls himself Jesus of Nazareth. And Farrar, who was a brilliant British writer, Jesus of Nazareth, why did the glorified speaker adopt the name of his obscurity on earth to tell Paul? Because his persecutor, Paul, knew him not. So Paul didn't know him by just seeing him And he didn't wear a name tag. I am Jesus, the Messiah. Okay. He didn't know him. He would not have, for he had known him, he would not have persecuted him. He knew not that he had been begotten of the Father, but Paul did know that he was from Nazareth. That he knew. He was a Nazarene. So when Jesus introduced himself to Paul, he said, I am Jesus of Nazareth. Can you imagine the realization Paul suddenly has on the road to Damascus after he, as Saul, has persecuted? He held the cloak while Stephen was stoned, while Stephen himself said something blasphemous to Jews. There I see Jesus standing on the right side of God. So Paul, can you imagine the flood of emotion that came over him? That's why he was blinded for 3 days. This epiphany had such huge effect upon him because he realized, I have been persecuting men and women, stoned to death for following who? Jesus of Nazareth. Suddenly he realized this person who he had never seen is the Messiah. And what's so wonderful about this moment of Paul that we will explore deeply is how from that very moment and 3 days later, when he receives a blessing and confirmation from Ananias in Damascus, he had this road to Damascus conversion. And I believe everybody in life who calls them a Christian, who follows Jesus Christ, I think in their life, they have to have a road to Damascus experience. Because if you've had that and you've had a ability to be forgiven, to understand repentance, because we've all sinned, myself especially, sinned majorly. Paul had basically, as we just said, held the cloak while people murdered his fellow, who would be soon to be his fellow Christians. He knew that. He turned his life around, and from that moment on, he would never, ever disavow that he hadn't seen that. He gives it in 3 separate instances in the scriptures, a little bit different each time, which we'll explore. But that's why Joseph Smith, if you're an LDS follower on here tonight, that's why Joseph Smith quoted Paul specifically in his own history to say, Paul would never deny it, therefore I can never deny it. I am in that league with Paul. And that's what Paul did to the very end of his life. He dies sadly in Rome. We don't know even the exact day. We don't know the exact time. We know he was in prison. We know from that prison came some of these epistles. But up until then, he's almost a fury. He is the epitome of Spencer W. Kimball saying, wear your shoes out in the work of the Lord. He just doesn't stop. We actually have a physical description of him by Joseph Smith, if you're LDS, that he was very short. He was not good looking, and his voice was quite shrill. Okay. And so you often, but when Joseph said, when he got started on his messages, he would become a flame. And that's why people flocked to him. That's why he could create small churches. And that's why Stoics and Epicureans and people and Pharisees could all listen to him and know this is an educated man. And at one time he absolutely says, I am a Roman citizen. I must be taken to Rome to be tried. Now, the one place we won't cover on this tour is where I've spent before the pandemic, nearly 8 months in Malta. That's where this movie is going to take place that I'm making, Faith, Hope, and Charity, is in Malta, where he gets shipwrecked, which is in Acts. So maybe if you guys enjoy this tour, maybe we'll do a part 2 tour and go to all the other places that we'll go to Rome and Malta and all those cool places and see things. Because following his life, in my mind, is following one of the greatest followers of Jesus Christ, believers in Jesus Christ, and even more importantly, was a missionary. He taught Christ all the time. That's what he felt dedicated in his life to do. And I have no doubt wherever he is now, that's exactly what he's doing. So what will you walk away from on this trip? You'll walk away with this beautiful country that you get maybe once in a lifetime to see, that's filled with history and romance and drama, tragedy, but also heroism. And then melded into all of that is Paul's footsteps, how he went around to these small communities, mainly of Jews at first. But then it was Paul. Remember, it was Paul who had a disagreement with Peter, that changed the church into not just going to the Jews, but going to Gentiles also. And that's why this Christianity that covers the earth today is what it is, because Peter finally understood this is really what is right. And it's all connected in part of this tour. We'll see that evolution, and it'll all come back to where the great philosophies of the world, from Plato to Aristotle to philosophies like I just showed you on the books, Epicureans, that they all take second place. They're little seeds of those that are part of Christianity. But what Paul was preaching, the gospel of Jesus Christ, when we go back to Athens, we'll realize that all of those are fun to read about, fun to look at, but Christianity has become the life force of this earth. And it was the Messiah, Jesus, coming in this at the time that he came. And that's why he said to Saul, 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 why persecutest thou me? And by me, he means his following his sheep that are already following him. And Paul took it upon himself for the rest of his life, like some of us have done. If you've ever sinned, you feel a great need to do something in your life to atone for your sins. Even though there's a Christ who is the atoner and a redeemer, there's something in you that says, I've got to give back. I've got to go out and teach. I've got to fulfill my callings. And that's what you'll find in Paul. So that's the introduction I would say to you. It will be with me, as some people who've heard me, I mean, I'm doing gospel doctrine classes for 6 different wards for 20, 30 years. You'll know that there'll be a lot of humor in there. There'll be quotes from movies. There'll be a lot of visuals that we'll see. I'll also get off on some tangents and stories, so someone will have to nudge me to not talk about Alcibiades. Anybody know who Alcibiades is? One of my favorite characters in Athenian history. I'll throw out books for you to read. There's a great fiction book called Tides of War, if you want to read about the 300. Oh no, the 300 is Gates of Fire, but if you want to read about Alcibiades, it's called Tides of War. They're by Stephen Pressfield. Pressfield, I know that. What is that name? He wrote a famous book on golf, and then turned his, which was made into a movie. Robert Redford made it into a movie. The legend of what is it called? The Legend of something Bark. But he then turned his love to Athenian fiction. But anyway, you'll get lots of tangents like that from me. You'll also get some historical perspective because I have studied a lot of history. And so it won't just be let's read from the scriptures, but as everyone knows, will bring my big scriptures that are half falling apart, but are all, because you can see all of your scriptures will be marked like this at some point because they all tie together, especially Paul's teachings. Paul's teachings are what we can really tie a lot of modern day LDS and other Christian beliefs. There's another very good book written by a non-Christian, by the way, that I've been reading. And this is a really, really good book. It's good to look at this perspective, especially from a modern day look, by N.T. Wright, and it's just called Paul, a Biography, if you want to, you could say, bone up on things. Also, I have this really cool book, if you can find it. I'm going to bring it on the tour so we can all look at it there. This is a really cool book. Have you seen these kind of books where they have the ruin that it is? You see, okay, that's the ruin in Athens. But then if you go like this is what it was like. You see, you can see the page over the top of it. And that's what I want to bring, because we're going to see a lot of ruins and go, well, that looks like a pile of rubble, McKay. Well, yeah, it was a pile of rubble now, but by the way, it looked like this. I mean, that doesn't look like much, does it? I mean, that's not really exciting, but look what it used to look like. That's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. Okay, so these kind of books, if you can find them, they're not too hard to find, and there's several. This is just one kind that show you some of the ruins and things that we'll be going to. I think are worth preparing yourself. Prepare yourself a little bit, because the more questions you ask, the better it is. I do that myself. I ask questions all the time. What will make this tour? What will make it more exciting than another tour? Why did they build those crazy monasteries on the side of those mountains? I mean, that seems absolutely insane. But the more you look into it and dig into it, there's a reason for everything. So that's my pitch to go on this tour. I'm having a lot of my family go on this tour because it's just beautiful. You can't take I don't think you can, every shot you're going to take is called a postcard. You know, it's a postcard shot. But also, as I said, you'll be learning some very deep doctrine and deep historical and romance that's happened in the world. So that's my spiel. That's what I'll say. I don't know if Jill's going to put on the slideshow or not.
All right. Yeah, I thank you, McKay. And I have my golfer here behind me, and it's the Legend of Bagger Vance.
Yes, yeah, that's right. So Stephen Pressfield went from that to writing Greek history.
Yeah, that's quite a leap. Wow. Well, I don't know about anybody else, but I'm pretty excited, and I've got my list of books. Don't know if I can get through all of them before we get to Greece, but I'm going to turn the time over now to my partners, Jill and Mark Clifford. And Jill's put together a PowerPoint that's going to show some of the sites that we'll see and also give us some information about the cruise portion of the tour.
And then Jill, can they ask questions after that, or do you want them to ask questions now, or when do you want them to do it?
Sure. I'll show the PowerPoint, and then if they have questions,
Sounds great.
we'll go. Okay. Okay, are we,
It's up there. Someone should do some really cool music, I guess.
okay. All right, we're going. Okay, so McKay has already pointed out much of what you'll see here, but here's just some visuals for you to consider. So of course, we will spend a couple of days in Athens and visit the Acropolis. Can't visit Athens without doing that. From the Parthenon, from the Acropolis, you look over onto Mars Hill, which is where Paul spoke. And so I'm sure McKay will have some wonderful stories for us to share there. While we're on the tour, one of the advantages, of course, going with a wonderful guide like McKay is that we'll get to hear from him on site, but we will also hear from him on the bus, and we will also have local tour guides. So we're going to be learning and asking questions throughout the trip, not just while we're on site. You'll have the opportunity to be learning throughout the whole trip, and it's a wonderful experience. So I really appreciate that. Here is ancient Corinth. A wonderful, as he compared it to Las Vegas, I don't remember hearing that analogy, but very appropriate right there. The main walkway there, and we'll learn to stop where they suppose that Paul might have stood on the Berea, giving his lecture there. Thessalonica, I don't know when Thessalonica became Thessalonia, whatever, but there's a famous arch there. We'll visit that city. Philippi, the letter to the Philippians, of course, a huge city that's now mostly ruins. And these aren't quite in order, but we will also have opportunity to go by ship for a few days. This is the Celestial Cruise Lines. They are Greek-only cruise lines. They just go to the Greek Isles and focus there on those sites. So they're the experts on the Aegean Sea, and it's a wonderful cruise ship and beautiful. And Mark and I did that this couple years ago, and it was awesome. The cruise package, or excuse me, the tour package comes with the inside stateroom. The exterior staterooms with an ocean view, balcony are also available. They're upgrades. So when you sign up, you can, plan on this inside room, but if you'd like to have an upgrade, just let us know. Just a quick view of the pool, of the deck, and the ship. You can see you have a wonderful pool, and promenade deck and all the amenities you expect of a regular cruise ship. Beautiful dining room. And then I'm going to quickly go through the islands that we'll visit on the cruise ship. Mykonos will be there for sunset, and it's a beautiful island. It's just what you picture Greece to be. Ephesus, of course, is not in Greece, it's in Turkey, but we're going there, and we'll have a morning and early afternoon here at this site, and we'll learn all about the things that Paul told the Ephesians, even in this amphitheater here. I think life was threatened, or he was arrested or something, but
It escaped.
he escaped. Is that what it is? Okay. We deviate from Paul for a little bit when we visit the Isle of Patmos. The Apostle John was here. He was exiled here, and this monastery up here on the hill was built in honor of him. They have a cave of the Apocalypse, which tradition holds is where he received his revelation that he recorded as the book of Revelations. We will go there. Don't know if that's where he was, but we're pretty darn close if you're on the island. And it's a beautiful view. This view of the island is from that monastery. Next, we visit the island of Crete. So the Palace of Knossos is there. And you might want to get a flip book like McKay mentioned. I think that's pretty cool. But this Palace of Knossos is amazing because those colors are still there. Those painted walls have been preserved amazingly. So that's all original there. And this is just a few pictures of dozens. So that's a fun place to visit. There's some mazes underneath, so that's why they think maybe the Minotaur began there. We'll visit the island of Rhodes, a full day there. Paul supposedly visited there, so Walt McKay can tell us more about that. But there's this medieval walled city there. Templar Knights spent some time there. Beautiful, beautiful island. We visited the Temple of Lindos, where they have an ancient temple there. So pretty cool. And then we finish up the cruise at picturesque Santorini, and it really does look just like that. It's amazing. Those cliffs, it's a caldera, a huge volcano, and the cities just rest right upon the top there of these mountains. You have to take a gondola, little trolley car up to get to the top, unless you want to hike, but you want to spend your time up top. And that's it. So there's back at Ephesus where we'll learn more about Paul. So I'm gonna go back to McKay. I think maybe yeah. Do you want to add a few things after seeing those pictures, McKay?
Well, no, I think they're all beautiful. One place I didn't touch on that my son is most excited to go to is Crete. He's in love with minotaurs for some reason. And the story of the Minotaur, which is, you never know what turns a 10-year-old on, but he thinks it's the coolest thing in the world. But I wanted to go there just because my favorite writer is a guy named Adam Nicholson. He wrote a great book on Samuel Taylor Coleridge last year, but probably the best book written last year. And on William Wordsworth, the great poet, and it's on poetry. But he is actually in Crete right now, and I've been trading texts with him because I don't know if he'll be there when we're there. But he's writing a book on Crete, and so it's such a fascinating story in itself. I mean, for us to try and just absorb it in this quick amount of time, we're going to have to be concentrated and being able to be. It's going to be a lot of fun, but at the same time, we're going to go through thousands of years of history in a very visual and literary form. And that's, to me, really fun. And when I saw those pictures, and you just mentioned those colors that are still so vibrant, one of the things that's really cool is down in Pompeii, how they're doing archaeology. We're not going there, but uncovering how colorful some of these murals and that they had, and the beautiful marbling and little tiles that is just artistry at its finest. So not only are we talking about religious things, we're going to be talking about hopefully some of the most beautiful artistic things ever made in this area. We probably ought to open up for questions if anybody's got some questions. You'd have to unmute yourself to ask.
Hey, McKay.
Go ahead.
Hey, you. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Doing okay.
I have many questions.
Well, start.
Good.
So my phone died. I'm so sorry, but I was wondering if you could send an email or someone that it kind of just goes over how many days again we'll be, doing each tour site. I saw what we'll do on the Celestial cruise, but I'm not sure how many days, and it's kind of nice to know the time frame and where you'll be exactly. So I don't know if that's possible. And then like how many people, so how many days we'll be on the cruise for 4 days, and then yeah,
let's let Jill answer that. Jill, we're going to have it on the website quickly,
Okay.
right? The itinerary.
Yes. legacytoursandtravel.com. And if you go down, that's our website.
Okay.
You'll see a picture of Greece. and click on that, and then it has the itinerary there, so you can
Oh,
see
nice.
what we're doing there. And it'll tell you like how long we're spending in each of the sites there. So that'll help with that. And then, is there another question?
You had a
Any
second,
other-
Catherine?
Oh, what was my second question?
Something about.
Oh, yes. It was about the cruise ship. How many people can fit on this cruise ship?
It's not a huge cruise ship, is it, Jill?
Yeah, a little smaller.
No, I want to say 2,000, but I will have to verify that.
Okay.
But all it goes is the Aegean, so it can't be that big.
Right. It is not that big. It's yeah. That picture is pretty accurate, but
Oh, yeah, that looked, yeah, perfect.
So what cruise company was it? She just said, I should have written it down.
Well, it's in the stuff.
Jill, tell them the cruise company name again. The cruise company.
Celestial Cruises, and Celestial is spelled Celestial.
All Greek.
Celestial Cruise Lines, yeah. So you can visit their site to actually, and that will give you a lot of information to see the different places are going. And I just remembered the cruise ship includes free excursions. I think 3. So 3 of them are included. We will go to Ephesus together. We will do, well, I think we'll let McKay maybe decide. But 3 of them we will do as a group. Then you'll also have some options to either just be on your own when we get to port, or sign up for another cruise guided excursion. But yeah, we'll let you know which ones those are going to be, and so you know if you need to sign up for other cruise.
Yeah, maybe you should, Jill, if you could put a link maybe on that tour thing to the cruise line.
That's a good idea. We can.
Then they can offer, they probably on their line show the different excursions, I would imagine.
Yes.
I don't think any of you guys want to go nude bathing in Greece, but it is always an option.
It is available.
Always an option in Greece.
Jill, it might be good to go over what the food options look like for the tour.
Good point. So on the land portion, breakfast and dinner will be included each day. That's a buffet at the hotel. And they have a great assortment of food there. It is Mediterranean food. So you'll get, salad and cucumbers morning and evening, tomatoes and cucumbers. But they have pasta and rice and lamb and chicken and a great variety. So those are very convenient because you can come down early in the morning, get your breakfast, or do it last minute right as you're getting on. It's a flexibility, and the same with dinner. You come down and eat, or rest first, whatever works best for you. Lunch will be on your own on the land tour, and we'll have some fun different places for you to try and get some Greek kebabs or whatever else you'd like to try there. On the cruise ship, all the meals are included, like a standard cruise. But sometimes, you're not on, it's an evening cruise, so you'll be off and won't be able to have dinner if you decide to stay on shore. So just have to keep that in consideration. Drinks are included also. They have wrapped that in. So all beverages on the cruise ship, including soda pop and juice and I think alcohol, but that wasn't our option. It's just the beverage package is included.
I have a question up here that says, can we dig for spears too? That would be really cool. Let me make some inquiries, because it'd be cool because we do have this extra time where you don't have to spend any time with me babbling on. So if there's probably an excursion that we could go out to, like where I said, where the Thermopylae is quite fascinating, because the reason why they chose to hold there was because it's called the Gates of Fire. It was a very narrow place. The Persians couldn't get through, so they got bottlenecked. But because everything has changed so much, the sea, it's actually really a wide valley now. And that's why they're finding the spears and everything, because it's been underwater, a lot of it. As the waters receded, it's in the sand. So I'll contact my friend who has that. I don't know if they'd let us, but we probably couldn't keep anything, but we'd be tempted to. But I mean, we'll find it. I think there's some fun things we can explore and do on these kind of trips. Any other questions? How about like your kids or your uncle or your crippled grandmother? What nobody's got any other questions?
Yeah, cover that one, McKay.
Okay, yes.
And then cover, are there any like COVID, do you have to do like COVID testing and 3 days before like Hawaii and?
That's the greatest question of all time in my business. It's almost destroyed my business of filmmaking. So,
I know.
but we're hoping, I mean, I've been vaccinated. We're hoping by then everybody will be vaccinated. I would imagine even like the film I'm planning, even though everyone will be vaccinated. In fact, if you go to Malta, you're required to be vaccinated now. Even then, we'll probably be doing tests, a quick test in the nose, especially on anything on a cruise line. I imagine that is going to be on for the next year or two, just that kind of test. But we're all hoping by the time this cruise takes off that we've solved a lot of that. As far as go ahead.
I was just going to say our tour company on the Greece end of it, they'll be giving us all the information as it gets closer, because everything is changing month to month. And so once we get closer, we'll know better about what's required.
I've never seen anything.
There you go.
Now, it might be, Jill, let's talk about deposits for the tour, how they get signed up. And then final payment would be something that we would be looking at adjusting a little bit. Normally we do 30 or 90 days out, but because of the COVID situation, we have to just kind of watch that, because see, right now we can't really go to Greece. If we were to try to go today, but September is a ways down the road. So, but anyway, let's talk about their deposits and how they get signed.
So $300 deposit holds your spot on the tour, and that is refundable up until final payment. So we do realize that stuff happens, but if you decide, well, I'm going to wait and see what my life turns out to be, then there may not be any spaces. So yeah, our website, legacytoursandtravel.com. At the top bar, there's a reservation form. So you complete that. If you prefer, you can call us and give us the information. If you fill it out online, you'll get within 24 hours, you'll get a automated payment link. You can call us, or you can use that link to make that deposit. So that's refundable up until final payment. Typically, final payment is 90 days. As Chris said, we're finding that 45 days works a little better in this COVID world. So this tour that's going to put us about the 1st of August. So come mid-July is when we're going to email you reminders for the final payment, and that's when we'll give specifics on what the cruise line is saying or what Greece is saying, what guidelines, restrictions, whatever is coming down. And then at that point, we'll let you know when final payment is, and then we are not able to do refunds after final payment. So we encourage travel insurance at that point. Then you are able to get everything back if something were to happen, either before you're traveling or while you're traveling. It covers you both ways. Yeah, I'll send you the links to our TravelX group insurance, which really offers a great price. It's a lot better than an individual rate. So you can be thinking about that, but we won't need the payment for that until we're purchasing the actual full payment on the tour.
I'm also bringing a lot of my family's going to come, and I think we're looking at it as a really fun family excursion. They don't mind listening to me, which is okay. I know some people actually want to get away from their families and go on vacation, so I understand that. But at the same time, if you have someone, you don't have to be from Utah. Hopefully we've sent this out and people can get on the site and watch this program today. We have people from all over the United States. A lot of my family's spread out. So we're hoping that everybody meets up and just has a great time in the sun and sees these sites that you always hear about your whole life. You just want to see them. You want to be there and feel them. So you might want to reach out to those people, family or friends who are interested in this.
Yeah, absolutely. It is. Yeah, McKay said it's a postcard everywhere you look, postcard picture, and it's absolutely true. Just scenic and picturesque, and then of course history. So it is a fantastic trip. I was going to say.
I wanted to mention that we have a group airfare package.
That's what it was.
There you go. Yeah, a group fare to a flight round trip from Salt Lake into Athens. And I think it's around 1,400.
Yeah, that sounds right. And we'll get you that specific information if you decide you'd like to coordinate your own airfare. That's perfectly fine. You just need to know what time we're arriving so that you can get with those transfers and departing likewise. But we will send you that information about the group airfare.
I had a quick question.
Holy crap. It's my sister, the person I was just talking good about, so don't say anything bad.
Yeah, good job.
I missed that part. I lost connection there for a second. I am, and you might have already answered this, and I'm sorry. What category of hotels are we staying at?
Nope, we haven't covered that. So they are 4-star hotels. That's a Greek 4-star. So you have to realize that a lot of them are old with old plumbing. They're beautiful, historic buildings oftentimes, and very nice, and clean, well kept, maintained, but they are older. So it says a 4-star, I would say 3-star maybe.
Yeah.
You might be comparable to here in the States.
Okay,
They're
thanks.
clean.
Well, my sister is asking that because my sister used to take travel groups everywhere, but she went to India and had the time of her life, changed her life, Mother Teresa thing, and I came back and I said, well, should I go to India? And my sister on here right now, she says, you should not go. You should not go because you're so used to staying in nice places in Paris and London. You will hate the filth and the humanity of it.
Well, I was
So
right.
I never went. I've still never gone to India and submerged myself with the poor.
And I hope you never do.
There you go.
Oh,
Well, now that we have this family reunion, I haven't seen you for like 2 months. Hey.
how you doing there?
I don't know if India could handle McKay, but maybe.
She can. Don't kid yourself. So the other reason I'm taking my 2 sons is I want them to get a heads up on all the other kids in the world. Yeah, they're going to know history. I'm going to beat it into them.
Well, it sounds like a great tour, guys. It really does. So will this be available that I can send this on to my friends and such, this presentation you've done tonight?
Yeah, we've recorded it and we'll send it out through email, right, Jill? It'll go through email and then it's posted on our Facebook page, which is legacytoursandtravel.com.
Yeah, and then I'll also upload it to YouTube and put that link on the website. So there should be 3 different ways to get to it. It might take me a couple days to get it all queued up and ready to go, but watch for an email update or check back on our website in a few days.
Wonderful. Great.
Well, are there any other questions?
Okay, I have a question. So Jill, it's actually Dave's question. What's the capacity on people? Because we're looking at 1 bus. Are we looking at around 40 max, 35 max?
Yeah, I don't have that number actually in front of me, but that sounds about right. Obviously, the cruise ship is not limited that way, although we only have a certain amount of staterooms held. So
Right.
we do need to, if we need more staterooms, we have to get those in advance.
Yeah.
40 though, yes, I think is our limit. I'll have to double
Okay.
check.
Yeah, because we just keep it to one bus because we've got
Correct.
one McKay. We can't clone them yet. We don't have that technology.
You don't want to. You don't want to.
All right, any other questions?
Well, I hope you all can make it. It'd be great to have everybody there.
Oh, there's nothing like learning about history in the foot
On-site.
right there where it took place. It's so powerful. And when you've got this brain of McKay's there with us and his mind and everything that he's going to share, it's going to be phenomenal.
Hey, do we
All
have any
right.
idea? Do we have any idea how many people are signed up now?
I don't, Dick. I didn't know you were on, Dick. How you doing?
Well, I've been trying to maintain a low profile, but listen, I was thinking we can go to one of those nude beaches if you want to, as long as you don't go.
As long as I don't come.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot,
Just
Dick.
want to let you know that.
By the way, Dick Winwood speaks a little bit of Greek, don't you, Dick?
Be careful.
I'm hoping he comes. Dick Winwood's one of the greatest guys in the world. If you can make it, Dick, with your wife, I would love it. Your wife is from Greece, right?
Well, her family is.
That would be so much fun to have you on there. I'd love
We
it.
would love to go. That's our plan.
Great.
Yes, far as signups, we're just under 10. I think have only been advertising it really for the last month or two. So there's a lot of room right now, but after this presentation, we expect we'll start getting that filled up.
Invite your friends.
Great.
Iparisto para poli.
I love it, man. It's fun. You ought to just go with Dick Winwood. Don't just forget about me. You guys ought to go on the cruise with Dick. He's great. I love him.
Hey, Judy's keep asking me what the dates are. When do we leave? When do we come back?
It's not exactly solid because of the pandemic, but right now, when is it scheduled?
It's
September what?
Yeah, September 16th,
Okay.
I believe. Let's see right here.
By the way,
September.
I got a hold of I got a hold of Delta Airlines because Judy and I were thinking about going to Greece later this year, and and they're open actually. You can fly into Greece from the middle of May, and I don't think there's a problem.
oh, good.
So we
Awesome.
should. I think by the time we get to the end of the summer, I don't think we're going to have a hard time at all.
Right. That's really good news. It's the 15th through the 26th of September.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Is that it?
All right, if that is it,
Well, thank you.
we will sign off. Thank you for joining us. And again, we will have that posted in 3 different sites on YouTube, legacytoursandtravel.com, our Facebook page, and then we will be sending it out to our contact list for Greece. So great. Thank you for joining us tonight. Thanks, McKay.